Jared's like, please
Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gutting. This episode brought to you by the proud supporters of our Patreon channel. Check it out today, patreon.com/Savage Worlds GM podcast. If you like what we do, throw us a buck, support the show. At specific levels, you get access to the green room behind the scenes, ass hattery that happens among the hosts 30 minutes before the program. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at SWGM podcast. Follow us on iTunes. Or follow us on YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. Goddamn, fucked up the intro again.
So close.
Goddamn. Go ahead and check out the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share. YouTube.com/SWGM podcast. And last but not least, if you're watching the live stream tonight, feel free to participate in the chat. We do bring that into the show. Tonight's topic: liars, cheaters, and creeps. We're talking about bad player behavior at your table and how to deal with it. And here to discuss it, Scott, the Savage Cheerleader. Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
I'm Batman.
No, you're not.
Dave, the Rules David Scott.
He wasn't ready.
No, I wasn't.
And Chris, the Savage Mommy Fox.
Break.
You gotta say cut.
Cut.
Break.
Powder
Cut,
flour. Powder flour.
Did you say cauliflower?
I don't know. No, it's some kind of stupid flour. It's red, green, and yellow.
They said there's no such thing as ghost broccoli, but I know what I saw.
Pretty good. You might be retarded.
Oh, wait.
Wait.
Right, you can't
Finally
say
got
that.
it.
You can't
Jared is now doing the typical Dave maneuver as the GM.
No, that wasn't frustration. I just had something.
No. He's retarded, as in like a retarded free fall from a bomb. It's
Is
degraded.
it not fully developed?
It's
Retarded?
degraded. It's slow.
Oh, degraded.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a real word. Just saying.
Just saying.
There are other words, but we'll just.
Wow, why do I feel like Will Ferrell's impersonation of Alex Trebek on Jeopardy?
I don't
And
know.
the show's reached a new low.
No, not yet.
Give it a minute.
Let's talk about bullshit artists at the table.
Suck it, Trebek.
Yeah.
That would be therapist, Mr. Connery.
I would like anal bum cover for 300.
You amateur motherfuckers.
Look. We are not amateur. We do not have 3 white guys in a room talking into microphones. We have 5.
Right.
Yeah, my 23andMe story, I can't even refute anything.
Yeah, Chris nailed it in the chat. This was never a nice podcast. I don't know what you guys have been watching for 5 years.
Whatever.
Someone's confused.
Full of helpful shit.
Yeah. So let's talk about the worst possible behaviors. This coming from a Facebook post, inspired by a Facebook post on the Savage Worlds official Facebook about dice cheating. I have a player at my table who's dice cheating.
Boo.
So let's talk about that. First of all, I hope you're not a GM who dice cheats by rolling behind a screen.
Oh,
The gauntlet has been laid down.
So
I'm going to start there, are we?
I'm going to start there because you can't accuse your players of dice cheating when they never see your rolls either.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, did he admit to rolling behind the screen?
No,
No.
not that I know of.
He's not
I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Jared
it's
is throwing down the gauntlet that you don't fucking roll behind a screen if you're a decent GM.
DM like a fucking adult.
Right, out in the open.
Yeah.
Let them see those dice and add up the numbers themselves.
Right. We'll get back to that point, I'm guessing, when we talk about cheating.
Yeah. So let's talk about dice cheating. What's the deal? How do you dice cheat in Savage Worlds? Do you not show your dice and just automatically you're always getting raises on shit?
Well, yeah, right, because that's how most people cheat when they play role playing, or they use those motherfucking like 1 millimeter dice that, for whatever reason, dipshits love to use.
That nobody can read.
I fucking hate those dice so much.
So, I mean, I do actually have a set of the dice Scott's talking about.
Shocking.
But they belong to Mabel, and they are actual gemstones.
Well, she's a girl and has small hands, so she needs tiny dice.
But with that said, like, there is legitimately a way to cheat at dice in role-playing games. That is what the entire post we're referencing was talking about.
Okay.
That is weighted dice.
actual like loaded dice? We're talking Vegas 70s bullshit.
We're talking weighted dice, which can be either loaded dice like you're talking about, or it can just be like miscuts, bad tumbles, dice that aren't balanced properly before they're sold because you're a dumbass and bought your dice in one of those buy a 5-pound bag of goddamn dice at a quarter of the normal price and thought I must be getting high quality stuff by the
Right, yeah.
cheap sale where I get to take a cup and to dip it into a barrel of dice at Gen Con and keep everything that comes up in the cup.
Yeah. Yeah. You can also freeze your dice. That will off-center them. You can add...
I've heard about baking them on a cookie
You can
sheet,
bake
too,
them. You can add heavier coloring or like nail polish remover. It's a little bit of extra weight onto the number you want to hit the bottom. There's all kinds of ways of physically... If you want to go the gambling route, yeah.
Seriously? What the...
So here's the thing, though. The post that we're talking about on Facebook actually went into like scientific methods to measure whether or not the dice was weighted, rather than just talking about the simple fact that if you have a player playing at the table who goes to the extreme of creating weighted dice, you've got way more problems than just knowing if they did it or not.
But how am I going to win Dungeons and Dragons? What the fuck?
Well, we've said it before. We've said it before on the show, and we'll say it again. If you have to cheat at role-playing games, then you've got bigger problems than being a cheater in a role-playing game.
So, well, Dustin, you're the closest thing. You're a real professional. I'm just kidding. You're a professional. Why would someone cheat at a role-playing game clinically?
Clinically speaking, they have so the act of winning, you have neurotransmitters, specifically dopamine and serotonin. People want to get a major high and that sort of elation. The problem with cheaters is that they don't care how they get it. They literally get addicted to the sensation of overcoming. So that's why if you have a challenge that's too easy and prolonged series of very easy encounters, that people will just stop thinking the game is fun because they have to have something difficult to overcome, and then they get a certain reward from actually overcoming it. So somebody that cheats wants to get that high or that elation from it, and plus they also want their own ego stroke. They want to sort of be that character for a little bit, to sort of, they want to win, even though winning is a little bit more abstract. They just want to do what they want to do, you know?
Yeah. They don't want real life to fuck them just like, well, they want the game life to be miserable like their fucking real life is, right?
Well, their real life is miserable because they can't achieve what they want, or they get caught. And ironically enough, the same thing happens in the role-playing games. Yeah, man, people get high on winning. And if it's the whole concept of just actually succeeding in what they want to do, they really do get a hit at it.
Yeah.
See, and honestly, I think to a certain extent as a GM, if that's the actual situation you find yourself in, which, let me be exceptionally specific here, is very goddamn rare.
Yeah.
Like someone actually going to the extent of weighting their dice in a role-playing game, we're talking about someone who is actually mentally ill. And more than likely, your best recourse in that situation is to decide, is it important to you to have that person at the table? And if it is, let them do it. If it's not, then turn them away and have them go find another group to play with. You need to make that decision as to how important is that person, personally to you as a player and a friend before you take any additional steps. Because honestly, trying to correct the behavior in the game, they are going to get aggressive. You're taking their fix away from an addict.
Yeah. So that's I know we got Sean Driscoll with a comment we want to talk about, but it was an interesting point is that, so I've seen people bullshit their die rolls.
Mhm.
But I know that I will give. Man, this is might be terrible. I will give some players a pass because I just don't care at the moment, because it's like we always talk about. It's kind of inconsequential. I mean, I hate to say it because it sounds weird. But it can become inconsequential at the moment. Like, fuck, you hit, do damage, whatever. Because like Dave always says, I am the GM and I control everything that goes on at this table. So I'll just throw more monsters all of a sudden. Congratulations,
There's nothing the players can achieve that the GM can't take away.
Yeah.
So if I've got a player who feels the massive need to cheat and, fudge their dice rolls and constantly tell me they're critting or they're hitting for max damage or whatever it is that they like to do, I don't care. It's a goddamn game, and I don't want to confront your mental illness at my table long enough to take the fun away from myself and everyone else at the table. It's just not worth calling it out.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a moment. Let's say that you're as the GM, you're aware of it and you're fine with it, but the player sitting next to him is calling bullshit. Bullshit.
So that happens, right? Normally, you'll see the players say something before anyone else.
Yep, that's very true.
So I've seen it handled a few different ways. One of the guys that I actually played with years ago was really bad for it, and other players just said they wouldn't play with him. They took a strong dislike to him. Now, to be fair, in the specific case of the player I'm talking about, they took a strong dislike to other bad habits this person had, because 9 times out of 10, the players we're talking about that fit this extreme mold, there's a lot of other personality traits that go along with being an addict that make them undesirable to spend time around. They're kind of the ones that set that whole doesn't shower, lives in mom's baby, like the true grognard old school, idea of what a gamer was. A lot of those are those addicts that are still out there.
Wait.
We know what Dave means. They smell like Vienna sauce.
No, I'm trying to
I smell like patchouli.
Yeah,
your dick for that vorpal sword.
You got another one of them pennies on you.
Yeah. They smell like sausage and green peppers.
Yeah.
Now,
those guys.
Another GM handling a different player that I've heard the story about years later. Just that player's actions had no impact on the story or the game. So when that player would roll max damage, okay, great, and moving right along, and none of that damage ever made it to the enemy. The enemy was never actually affected by anything that character did.
I know.
The game world had protection against Dustin's character.
It's Kyle armor. So aside from the anecdotal side of the house, has anyone ever had cheaters at their table? Right?
Oh, yeah.
The hosts. Okay, Chris, you spoke up, motherfucker. Call them out.
Well, okay, I haven't run for this person, but I've played in multiple games here and there with this person, and it drives me crazy. But it doesn't seem like anybody wants to call him out, and he does it in board games as well. He's just an all-around cheater. I mean, we're playing Star Wars, one time, and rolls his dice. I'm sitting next to him, and I watch him, and he looks down at his dice, and he flips it.
Oh shit! Really?
Like he's just moving it so he can read it, but he flips it, and it hit and did max damage. I'm like, really, buddy?
Damn.
But yeah, I mean, I've seen him cheating. I've seen him cheat in board games. He's just a cheater in general. And so, talking about all this, I just don't play games with him.
Oh yeah, so you try to avoid it.
If he comes to a board game day, I do everything within my power not to game with him, because why do you want to game with somebody who has to cheat? Because for him, and Dustin kind of hit on this, it's how he makes himself feel relevant.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel relevant, so he has to do this. And I know my one buddy who was playing with a different game group, he was in that game group, and he used a dice roller on his iPad.
Oh, okay.
And would never get less than like a 15, 17 on the dice, but nobody would call him out on it. And they would let him use this dice roller. And I'm like, I played with him twice. I'm like, I am not playing with you people anymore.
Here's the thing, like that would be happening because of bad software. Because I'm here to tell you, Jared cannot roll above a 4 to save his goddamn life.
Yeah, but when you have a whole group basically enabling that person and enabling that behavior, that's also not a group of people that you probably want to play with.
Yeah.
So let me ask this, Chris.
If it bothers you, like there's some people out there who just aren't going to care enough and can play in that group just fine. But if it bothers you, you can also make the choice to walk away from the situation.
Yeah, and which I did, and I never played with them again. And this was way back in, they were play testing 5th edition, and I was like, nah, I don't really want to play with you people.
They were cheating on a play test?
Of course they were.
It defeats the whole fucking purpose.
But you have to understand that this particular person is, like I said, we do something, and I haven't gone in a while. We do something called Cabin Con, where we rented a cabin, and we would go up and board game for 4 days. And he would always be there, and that's where I saw him cheating at the Star Wars RPG, and that's where I saw him cheat at multiple board games. And it's just like he's so irrelevant.
Well, okay, so let me ask this question. So, does any part of you wish the GM would have spoken up and fucking said something?
Yeah, and I said to a couple people in the group, because I wasn't really, like I said in the group, I'm like, why are you okay with this? And it's like, it's just a game. It doesn't really matter.
Okay,
because I like him to just learn how the game can be cheated at. Like, is that his job?
And I never understood that when people would say, "Oh, it's just a game, so it doesn't really matter." But
of course it does. It's about, well, here I'm going to say this, right? Okay, so I'm not the politically correct member of this crew. I'm not as unpolitically correct as some other members of this crew, but I'm going to say this right now. Bullshit. Listen, if I'm sitting at a table and there's somebody cheating, I'm going to call them out on it. And I'm going to do it public and go, hey, that's bullshit. Roll that again. Let me see the dice roll. Because you've rolled an amazing 10 critical hits for damage, all the damage ever, consecutively. The odds of that happening, bullshit. Hand me your dice. Or here, use these dice and roll that shit. I'm not going to sit back and because I view my role as a GM in a game. I'm there to pretty much safeguard and make sure everybody has fun. And cheaters, in that sense, are ruining that sense of fair play. There's an unspoken social contract that we have rules in this game for a fucking reason.
I think that's more the point right there, is that it's a social contract. It's a social thing. There's rules in the game. And I think that's more where my problem comes in.
Right. So I'm the same guy that, to take this out of gaming. Somebody steps into a crowded elevator and lets one rip. I'm not going to quietly sit there and pretend nobody just fucking farted. I'm going to go, dude, not cool. Well, everybody else stares at their feet or stares at the ceiling and goes, uncomfortable. I'm going to be the one that says something. Yeah, I'm going to be the one that says something. Yeah. Like, are you serious? You couldn't hold that shit till you got out of the elevator?
No, it is frustrating.
For me, I played with enough people who were asshole gamers over the years that I just kind of got to a point where it's water off the back. I literally don't let it bother me if somebody has to beat his own chest about how good his character is. Ooh, your paper doll can swing his imaginary sword at the imaginary orc harder than my paper doll can swing his imaginary sword at the imaginary orc. I just don't fucking care. If you really need to prove how big your Thor's hammer is in an RPG, by all means, go right ahead. It's no skin off my back.
Yeah, that is a weird one. That last group I played with, that was a Supers game, and the GM wanted to swing his fucking pretend dick all over with his NPCs.
And again, that's just, I played with a lot of assholes when I was younger. Coming up, all of high school and early college era, the people I played with, legitimately, there was at least 2 assholes at the table every time we gamed. And it was a group of friends getting together to game, and it was just more important to hang out as friends than it was to worry about the game. And it taught me this lesson to just not worry about the small stuff. That's where I classify kind of the dice cheating when it's the players, when it's the GM, especially when we're talking like on this show, 2 GMs about how they can make their game better.
Yeah.
No. Fucking don't fudge dice, roll behind the screen. But if you got a player that just needs to make themselves feel better, does it really affect anything?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what Jared was getting at, right? It was like for him it does, for Chris it sounded like it does.
Yeah, I think it can affect the game.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I mean, like it
Fair
branches
enough.
out because here's the issue: you can't trust this person to be honest in something with such low stakes as
There you
the
go.
game. What happens when you need to trust them when you have higher stakes?
Yeah.
That's perfect, Dustin.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's a true statement.
Yeah, trust issue, I think. Yeah, that's
sure.
that's actually really that makes a lot of sense.
Well,
That's why when I go to game stores, I always have my fucking pistol on me and I open carry. I like to set a fucking tone.
Dude,
that's
that
actually
is
true.
ever.
That is fucking role playing in Tennessee. I do in fact carry my gun.
You have to. It's required by law. Oh my
Well,
god.
it's about this too. I mean, listen, you have rules in a game to establish a sense of fair play.
Right.
And when you let somebody cheat and you don't say anything about it, I'm not saying you necessarily have to confront them at the table publicly in front of everybody. That's my style. I mean, you don't have to do it that way, but you can pull them off to the side and go, "Hey, listen, I'm a little concerned that you're cheating I caught you red-handed, man, 3 or 4 times tonight. You retconned an action when you didn't succeed on one. I let it slide. You're doing all the shit that's cheating. It's classic cheating.
I have a copy
What's
of your
going
character
on?
sheet from last week, and somehow you came back with 3 advances you didn't have then.
Right.
No, the best advice I've ever heard was you just subtly and secretly change the time and location and day of your game, and the problem solves itself, Jared.
Yeah, you
Get
pussy
the
out.
fuck off the podcast.
You pussy out and don't confront anybody about anything ever, and shit just magically resolves itself.
We'll just say that's the HJ way.
That is some office space level bullshit. The guy burns down the building at the end of the day.
Spoilers.
Yes! It's a 20-year-old movie!
Break.
I was
Cut.
going to say, 20, 30-year-old movie. If you're worried about spoilers, Jesus Christ.
Cut.
Darth Vader kills the Emperor, and he's Luke's father.
Wait, what?
You son of a bitch.
Did you not hear me say cut and break?
We have to establish lines and veils.
Okay, wait, we're getting really
No, we're
close.
not talking about
We're
that. So
dancing
let's
on the
go back
line,
to
guys.
Sean. Let's go back to Sean Driscoll's question.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question. It was just him confessing his sins.
Yeah, okay. I don't want players to know the attributes of my NPC, so screen. So, Sean, let's talk about that.
Why?
Who hurt you, buddy?
And put your NPCs on a piece of paper, put that piece of paper on a clipboard, and keep that clipboard close to your heart.
Right.
No, put the fucking character NPC stats on the table next to the character so all the players can see them, and I don't have to tell them whether their first roll is a hit or a miss, and let them then consider if they want to spend the Benny. Let them see those stats. Let them make the decision about the Benny before I even have to get involved.
I do that same thing anyway. As soon as we get into combat and I'm like, it's a 6/6.
Yeah.
I'm like, so go. Yeah, and I do that because I'm like, why? It's a 6 parry, 6 toughness. Go for it. Let's
Now,
do it.
I like doing this just to reinforce the rules with players and make sure they learn them. I go, okay, he's got a 5 parry and a 6 toughness. You tell me if you hit and did damage.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lay the full character sheet out that shows weaknesses. That shows
No.
the
I don't
dice
know we're saying
levels for all their skills and stuff like that. But no, the basic numbers that the players need to know to speed the game up, that is the way Savage Worlds is designed. That whole fast, furious fun is dependent on players being able to make those decisions without having to have a spreadsheet and 9 conferences with the GM and a month worth of fucking math tutoring so that they can do the Pathfinder math, or lo and behold, go back to first edition and get THACO out and start trying to
No, you did not just say THACO.
Yeah,
you did not. No, God damn it! You did
that's
not.
That's what I thought. Because I know Sean from way back in the YouTube days, in the early aughts. He runs Traveler primarily, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know he's a Traveler guy, but at the same time, and here's the thing, Sean, legitimately, if this works for you, don't listen to a word we're fucking saying.
We're retarded.
But at the same time,
like a bomb.
There's a reason we say the shit we say.
Now, I'm going to say this. If you haven't tried it and you're defending your way, you need to try it. And then go, I like my way better.
Right, yeah. I mean, it isn't really like we talked about before, and I know Sean watches, and everyone is, it has no bearing on the game if they know what your target number is. It has no bearing. Not at all. I mean, who cares? Their hit points stay on a tally if I have to run D&D. I'm like, I can't do math, so I'm going to need the mathlete at the fucking table to help me count down backwards because I can't do this.
Well, and here's the thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because unless you're changing stats as the game is performing because you don't like the outcome.
Right.
And then in that case, you're fucking cheating.
Fucking exactly.
Yeah, we're back to the cheating topic, Well, and it's the same thing with.
He burned through my NPC too quickly. I'm going to change the toughness because that first hit, I don't want him to die from a wound.
So legitimately, let's talk about the difference between him hiding character stats behind the screen and still rolling in front of it, and rolling the dice behind the screen so that he can fudge a dice roll to say it wasn't as high as it was, or it was low. It was higher than it was. That's where the real roll behind the screen BS really comes into play. Yeah. If you just need a GM screen to hide the monster stats for your characters or to hide your map so that the players don't see it, legitimately, that's actual good game master technique to have stuff that the players don't know at the table. Some obfuscation makes perfect sense. Yeah. At the same time, your dice rolls are not among that.
Well, I don't even necessarily think that your characters are either. I mean, I'm going to say this. It smacks to me of somebody talking about a little thing that starts with an I and ends with an N and has immersion in the middle of it.
Has immersion?
Has immersion in the middle. I think it's the whole GM screen. I don't understand why it exists in Savage Worlds. I really don't.
Because it's got it's got good charts on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So why isn't that set perpendicular to the GM?
So I lay mine flat on the table.
Yep. The GM screen is traditionally used as a form of dominance to give the GM authority.
That is very true.
It comes down to.
It's a pulpit.
Yes, it's literally a pulpit. It's this is the person in charge. This is who we look to, and they have the power.
I'm going to dominate them dirty players.
Yeah. And then the whole concept is, you can hear it right when we said it, the people that put their GM screens down on the table to read or to look at because it's a source of information is very different from the people who just want to be recognized as the GM or DM.
I don't know. Scott standing at one end of the table, fully standing with a pistol on his hip, is the kind of dominance we're talking about.
My shirts are mostly covering the gun. Look, some of the game stores aren't in good areas, and when I meet people for the first time, I don't know what they're going to be like. And if you're gonna try some shit,
so when we
for my money,
say Scott killed a player, we mean Scott killed a player.
For my money, if you have a GM screen and you're concerned about keeping things behind it, hiding it from the players, why? What's the end goal? So you can change the outcome if it doesn't quote unquote fit your story. Is it a measure of control? I don't personally get it.
I'm going to follow your statement with the question from John Bott in chat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What about the GM who finds themselves in a situation they didn't plan for? They are new and presented their players with a battle that is way outside their skill level. The intent isn't bad. So Here's the thing: the intent isn't bad is a horrible part of this scheme.
No.
Because I could say the intent wasn't bad, that he put him in a bad situation, and the players now have to find a way out of it. Or I could say the intent isn't bad, that he's going to cheat and rob them of the challenge of finding the way out of it. Because here's the thing, folks. It can be a battle that's way beyond the skill level of the characters it was presented to. And the appropriate response is to run away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Run,
or
negotiate.
find creative ways to work around that.
Okay,
Or
here's what I don't like. Sorry, I'll let you speak here in just a second, Scott.
No.
Here's what I don't like about this mentality. This, like, I'm sniffing my own farts. I get to decide whether or not I'm safeguarding your fun as a player, because oops, the dice rolls aren't going in your favor. I must change tact to preserve the sanctity of your gameplay. Screw all that shit. You listen, if novice ranked players want to go up against a dragon, let them go up against a dragon. If they don't know how to pull a retreat and pull back, then that's on them. The GM is not in control of their success or failure and is not responsible for their fun.
So, Jared, what I think I heard you say is they need to learn to pull out.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
It's very important to learn these skills early on.
They need to learn the Monty Python thing of run away, run away. You mean retreat? Yes, retreat.
So, Jared, you actually sparked an interesting idea I just had. So the people, to me, if you say you're going to present a situation, right? Because you and I and Dave, right? You and I and Dave and Chris and everyone. Well, not Chris, because he runs Type B games anyway, right? Where it's the plot points, but you'll see why that's important. But rest of us are sort of like, there's a game world. What do you want to do? Here's your sandbox. Here's some toys I put around. Oh, you're gonna go to Dragon Mountain at novice level. Cool story. I'm gonna murder your characters because that's what a dragon would do. What I started thinking when you were going at that is that if you're the type of GM who is going to not run that, but you still might fuck up and do a really bad encounter, and you're going to cheat to do it, you really are the type of GM who runs railroads.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. You are a railroader.
Yeah, and it's this idea that it's okay. It's somehow okay because I'm cheating in your favor and for your benefit.
Right. Yeah.
But what I'm really doing is I'm removing choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm telling you how it's just going to go.
Right.
And that's why
I don't like the outcome. Because I don't like the outcome.
Yeah.
I don't get to decide that. That's a player choice.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting.
So, interestingly enough, I think there is something to be said about, as the GM, when you have that moment come up, you've presented something to the player characters, and you can tell by the look on the players' faces they don't know what to do. It's more appropriate to start making suggestions than it is to start fudging the dice in their favor, because you're going to accomplish two things by fudging the dice in their favor. One, you robbed them of their agency to actually be participant in the whole idea of what we're doing. Going back to that whole social contract of play conversation, where for Chris, it completely ruined the game when somebody cheated. Well, guess what? It equally does that if the person cheating is sitting behind a GM screen.
Right.
Two, and this is the other thing it really robs them of. It robs them of an idea of what their characters are actually capable of, because now they've succeeded in places they shouldn't have.
Right.
I mean, if you remove all of the obstacles, then, and I believe, like, based off of the studies that they've done, they found that when they put social animals side by side, even the social animals that could absolutely dominate the smaller ones, like just with no trouble whatsoever, would purposely lose about 30% of the time just to keep the smaller animals interested in play. Because if they lost consistently without winning or making any success at all, the smaller animals just stopped playing.
Oh, wow.
Well, and here's the other big part of that, too. When you get in the middle of a combat and you realize, oh, shit, I did not gauge this properly. You changing it in the last minute in the 11th hour isn't doing you a service. You're not learning from the mistake.
Yeah.
You need to make that mistake. And it's okay to, after the game, go, hey, guys, I'm sorry. I really fucked up.
Right. Well, it's like we talk about. Kill the fucking characters. Who cares? Right? I get it, but we did an episode on this. What, last week before, whenever it was? Like, let players die. Let characters die.
Stop carrying the gun to the game. Stop letting players die. So John followed this up with, from the perspective of a new GM, him from 2 years ago.
Cool.
If you're not prepared for TPK and it happens on accident, that's kind of rough.
Sure.
I'm going to say the problem with that statement is the word on accident.
Yeah, I was going to say, how is it
on accident? TPKs are on the back of player choices.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I was saying, we're just empowering you, John. Just fuck it. I mean, right?
Well, here's what we like to say, right? The ideal GM impact in the game and role in the game is I work in the problems department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a dragon terrorizing a town.
Right.
I have no preconceived notions about how you're going to handle that because I don't care. And me trying to figure out and plot everything you could possibly do and have a contingency for it, boring.
So, right. And that's where I see my frustration with gaming, is because that is how I want to run games too. And I've done that, is like, here's some shit going on. Because in my mind, we're like, okay, we obviously can't fight a fucking dragon, but what kills a dragon? Oh, we got to find a fucking magic dragon slaying spear. Well, how do we do that? Oh, well, there's this fucking old wizard who used to be a hermit, right? And I would like to see players build their fucking story as they go, and it's really frustrating because you don't see it. Because 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be like, well, I guess we're gonna go to Dragon Mountain, and he wouldn't kill us, so we'll just find out what's going on.
Everything looks like a nail to a hammer.
Yeah.
And here's the other problem with that too. Instead of trying to plot out every flow chart of how this encounter could happen, instead of doing that, invest that energy, that mental energy, in understanding the personality, motivations, and character of the dragon. That way, when players do things, you know how that creature or NPC is going to react.
Sure.
And you can react naturally or organically in role play.
Yeah.
I would honestly say, I don't know, guys. Whenever I get caught in a situation like this where the players are doing something kind of incredibly ridiculous, I might be guilty of doing something ridiculous in return. Like, let's say, for instance, we're in one of those games where the dragon's an actually intelligent creature. You know, like they come in there and they're like, we're going to get you. And the dragon is like, hold on. Answer me this riddle, all right? Answer me this riddle. Why did you do this?
Yeah, right, yeah. No, it's, yeah.
Like, I'm going to attack you with existential crisis.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you so many questions about your personality and your place in the universe, you're going to beg me to let you go get that spear of dragon flaying.
Right. Well, and that's how the new even the old Rev Ravenloft was written. And this is something, John, you can use too, is if you realize you're in a situation, sometimes the bad guys are going to fuck with the characters to prove a point or to test them, right? Strahd is so fucking old and bored, he wants to see what you're about. Are you about that life? Okay, cool story. I'm going to fling you against a fucking tree as hard as I can and not kill you, but I'm going to shake the shit out of you, right? And so that's another way of handling your villains. If they're going to overpower the party, be like, okay, cool story. They're going to walk away and mock you, call you a bunch of bitches, right? Kick your swords in the ditch.
You get to the dragon's lair, you roll back the stone, you go in there with the torches ready to have just this massive slug out fight, and there's the guy that gave you the quest, and he's the dragon. He's like, you idiots. You complete morons. I have lived since the dawn of time, and I thought I found somebody, but I've got you. Go back and get the weapon you need.
Right, yeah. And that will should drive them to be like, I'm going to murder that motherfucking dragon.
Well, so I want to roll this back just a touch, and instead of focusing so much on dragons and how to make them interesting, and not a specific target.
Yeah.
If we're talking about every way that a GM can run the game that can lead to a TPK.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, your job as the GM is to make that TPK as interesting as motherfucking possible.
Mhm.
You need to be fucking Quentin Tarantino selling Reservoir Dogs to the players
Yep.
during the TPK. This
Yep.
needs to be a denouement that they will talk about for 20 years.
Yep.
Chickens in the Mist is legitimately one of the single most successful adventures in Savage Worlds because 90% of player characters die in that adventure, but it's written in a manner that helps the GM make those deaths really interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the best ones because there was a lot of cocks in it.
Listen, guys,
Texas cock, no less.
And Chris with the dick joke. Awesome.
coming from the South and being in a place where people actually raise chickens.
Really, Dustin?
Yeah, when they raise chickens.
Cock coming from the South, huh?
Oh yeah, you got to go down below the belt before you find it. But I'm serious, man. Don't mess with a rooster. All right, like
You get the horns.
yeah. Well,
Right.
yeah.
So let's bring it back on tact. Ruben writes, I know some of these have been voiced by the podcast in the past. What trollish or unwelcome behaviors drive you all of you nuts the most? So apart from dice cheating, we've already talked about fudging and cheating. I think we've hammered that horse sufficiently. Let's talk about trollish and other behaviors that are part of this liars, cheats, and creeps.
Mm-hmm.
This is my personal pet peeve of a trollish behavior. I'm not a fan of the one very vocal player at the table who wants to recite all the rules to everybody before they start making a decision in role play. You could take cover with that and get a +2 bonus and shut the fuck up and let the person make their decision about what they want to do.
Yeah, don't play other people's characters.
Yeah, preach.
There's a gentleman I know. His name is Shane Hensley, I think. He fucking hates that. And I saw that at a convention.
Really?
And it was somebody telling Shane that. And Shane was like, oh, and it was afterwards. And it was like, oh my God. Yeah, you just told Shane how to play his character. Mistake.
That's pretty ballsy.
No, I just want to ask, were they playing Savage Worlds? Did this person look Shane Hensley in the face and tell him the rules in his own system?
I don't remember.
Hey, fuckhead walk tack. You ever heard of it?
And that's just me giving a little bit of shade to somebody. So
yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. Here's the thing. I don't think it comes from a place of malice either. When I see this happen, it's not the player character. It's not the player being a dick.
Nope, not at all.
They're very enthusiastic. Yeah, it's very enthusiastic about the game and trying to give suggestions and trying to be helpful. But it comes off overpowering. Like, you know what? Shut the hell up and let somebody make their own choices about their own character.
Right. Yeah. Wait till they ask. Right. Yeah. Let them ask. Right.
That, or, if you're in that moment where you see someone's about to do something and you've got this great idea for what their character can do, say, hey, I've got an idea if you want to hear it.
Yeah. Right.
Just throw out the offer as another plared instead of just fucking talking all over them, leaving them no room to play their own character. Jared and I have legitimately thrown people out of the game in the moment for doing it in previous sessions. We had it happen once in ETU and once in Dead End.
Yeah. The second bad cousin, inbred cousin of that, is narrating the player's reaction third party. Like, they get hit. Oh yeah, it hits you in the side of the face and you fall to the ground and go, ah! It's like, shut the hell up. You're not narrating somebody else's character.
Right. And the worst one for that is the fucking GMs who do that. Like, don't narrate what happens for the players.
I tend to actually ask my players, I'm like, do you want to describe it or do you want me to describe it? At that point, then I do something cool for them, or, if they want to, I'm like, go right ahead.
I always ask them the same fucking question. I don't give a shit. Like, hey, so that damage right there? Yeah, how does that end that motherfucker?
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask that occasionally. Sometimes I will narrate right up to the point where it's time for them to react.
Yeah.
The axe comes over the executioner's head with astonishing speed despite his size, and as it falls towards your chest, dealing a shitload of damage. What's that look like?
Yeah.
And just let them roll with how their character reacts to an axe being implanted in their chest. So there's that aspect of it. Now, if we're going to talk about, the pet peeves, I don't want to get too off track talking about stuff we've hammered on the show too much. So I'll just do this for a moment.
Oh, you motherfucker. I'm going to punch you in your dick.
Beyond that, what I will say is this, probably one of my biggest ones, and it started to come up more lately than I can imagine why, and it's really driving me kind of around the bend, is fucking brain farts from new medications. I had it.
Wait, you don't like it when people have brain farts?
No, Dave lost his train of thought.
I know, I'm just trying to help.
No, you're being mean, and
I am being mean.
Motherfuckers like you is why I need a fucking cut break card.
Yeah, why aren't you being considerate, Chris? Jesus, Casey, the man struggling. God, you have to kick him when he's down. Jesus,
I know.
Hey, I've been sitting here this whole time trying to think of the name of the cheater that I was talking about earlier. I can't remember his fucking name.
I know his name.
Cheater McCheaterson. That's his name from Cheater Town.
I think you know his name, but it's not. That's not.
God damn it, Chris! Just let it be that person.
Moving right
All
along. Scott, what's your favorite pet peeve?
Oh, woke motherfuckers at the table, because it's getting more and more predominant, and it's becoming more and more fucking annoying.
You find it to be a trollish behavior?
Yeah, because they do it on purpose.
Moral superiority.
Yeah, when we were running, we were debuting the game that my friend and I wrote, and we were running separate tables, right? Because we had big groups, and he had a fucking Jolly Rancher hair-colored fucking chick at the table, and he was talking. He was giving a little bit of the history about the races we had created, and part of it was the dwarves at one time were enslaved by this giant race, and so both are playable races in the game. And he's like, so let that kind of guide your role play. And when he said the slave thing, she was like, oh, here we go again. Always has to be something like that. I was like, shut the fuck up. First off, you're an entitled white bitch sitting at a fucking convention. So let's not fucking get on too high of a horse right now. Let's roll back. Yeah, so that shit is getting egregiously trollish at the tables.
Not touching this with a 10-foot pole.
I don't give a fuck. It's
I'm just seeing if Dave got his groove back.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
Kind of continue. So, this is one, and it goes way back to like the start of the goddamn hobby. But for whatever reason, I've seen a resurgence of it lately. It's what my character would do.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fucking no talent ass clown. No, it's not what your character would do. It's what you, the person, wants to do in the moment. And that's your excuse to fuck everybody else at the table's fun. Stop that shit. Back up your ass and get the fuck out of my game.
Yeah, those are the motherfuckers, the reason that they took thief and assassin out of D&D. Yeah. Because of those fucking idiots.
Yeah, it's this point of idea that, well, my character is this and that's why I'm going to do X.
I'm just
the reason you're doing X is because you as the player think it's fun or cool or interesting, and you're coming up with an excuse to hide behind the role play. If your character really has a problem with slaying the enemies and you want to take an action as a pacifist to not slay the enemies, it's all well and good to not let the other players get their coup de grace in at the end of the fight.
Sure.
You don't allow them to kill prisoners. You maybe don't use a lethal weapon.
Yeah.
But when you actively go out of your way to remove the ammunition from another character's weapon, you've stepped over the line.
Right.
Did that really happen? That's fucking amazing. Actually.
Not only did it happen, it was a note that was passed to the GM to do it so that no one else at the table knew it happened. And that player makes the dice roll and gets it narrated to them by the GM who allowed this shit to happen.
Wow.
The gun goes click on an empty magazine.
That's well, yeah, it's weird. Wow. I mean, I kind of, oh man, I don't know. I kind of applaud it, right? Because it makes sense if you're a hardline pacifist and you're going to go out of the way to sabotage the ability to kill. But
okay, but you reinsert the risk with it. You go, great, give me a stealth roll.
Yeah, right. You got it because
and then the player you're doing it to, hey, give me a notice roll.
Yeah, because you've never detached a mag from a long gun and then had to pull a round out, because if you don't carry one in the chamber, you're doing everything wrong in life. It makes noise, even as quiet as you want to be, getting that bolt carrier group back.
And I understand what the player's trying to do. He's fucking with the other player, trying to create something that is interesting to happen in the game. Great. Don't squash that. But go, you know what? Here's what's even more interesting. What if he catches you doing it?
Right? Or say it out loud and be like, no, this is what's happening. Yeah, you can't wake up because fuck you. Here's what I'm doing. I'll do the stealth roll. Right? Yeah, absolutely say it out loud.
I guess that's where, for me, it crosses that line. I don't necessarily mind inter-party conflict. In fact, one of the great moments we had in a game here recently was the previous campaign of Dead End, where Mabel's character reaches over and grabs the barrel of the gun and shoves it to the side so that they can't shoot somebody, specifically because her character's a pacifist. She did a support role in opposition to a fellow player's action, but she just announced that her character did this.
Sure,
it's the person who wants to hide that they're being an asshole player, instead of just saying it out loud. Because here's the thing: if your character's being an asshole, but you're just playing the appropriate for the character, why are you ashamed to say it out loud?
Right. Yeah. I question this, though, because no matter what your character would do, I think we have to get this whole concept of this is what my character would think about doing, or this is what my character would want to do, versus this is what my character would do, because it seems like the players have forgotten that the characters should still have some sense of self-preservation in the moment to balance out their personal desires.
Well, here's the problem. It's a role-playing game, and the game has rules that make it fair for everybody playing the game. This is the guy who wants to just player fiat shit.
Yeah.
And that's not how this works.
Well, it is now with Benny's.
Yeah, well...
Great luck.
Fuck you, Scott.
Get so many bennies that you just become the GM.
Oh fuck!
That's just the GM getting to be the guy that goes, no.
Scott, not only fuck you with with an unsanded wooden dildo.
All right, it's the best kind.
All right.
So, trollish behavior. How about you, Chris? What's your trollish behavior du jour?
I'm still trying to get over that last comment. I've thrown this one out there before, but it's the issue I had with the person playing the mean hindrance, who took it upon himself to decide that meant he could be a dick in character and out of character and think that was going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, Ruben's comment, it's that same thing. Reed's bloodthirsty hindrance, kill them all. That's not what it says.
Right.
But people like to use those again as excuses. And read a little bit into it, people. I mean, come on. And that does not give you carte blanche to be an asshole to the rest of the players, not the characters, but the players, just because you have the mean hindrance. So I'm going to be an asshole. I think that person was just an asshole in general. So,
yeah.
Well, I think, a former member of the cast said it best when he said, hey, it's a game. And sometimes you make decisions that are based on the story. Sometimes you make decisions that are based on the player, on the character. And sometimes you just make decisions because of the best possible outcome for the game.
Right.
And making any one of those decisions in the moment isn't wrong.
Yeah, but don't be an asshole and hide behind it's what my player character went down. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah, we all know fucking Dave's trigger now.
Well, that's okay. So
Oh,
then you just go, okay, great. That's what your character would do. Here's what the constable of the town that you do that in would do.
You smash your fucking face in.
So in the middle of the night, you get a blanket party.
There you go.
Why? Because that's what the city guard would do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a second one in the ring here because it just makes a lot of sense to kind of tag it into here. Is anybody else sick and fucking tired of verisimilitude introduced by a player who's like, but we're in the woods and I find chicken of the forest so that my character can guarantee to eat because they know what a mushroom looks like?
Wow.
I mean, are we making a survival roll before this all happens, or are we calling for a survival roll? Or...
No.
No.
This is players narrating
Nah.
all this shit that actually exists in the forest, trying to get a +4 on the survival roll that they've been told is coming. Or the character who's like, but, it's a small country bar, so I guarantee there's a baseball bat and a shotgun in the bar that I automatically get to find, right?
Well, that goes to the sort of loosey-goosey nature, right? Like, you can't describe everything in there, and they sort of assume, well, hey, I'm going to grab, the big beer stein and hit you over the fucking face with it when you didn't say it was a beer stein. I mean, I get it. It is annoying as fuck I guess if they do it all the time, but for the herbs and shit, so playing Rollmaster in Middle-earth, role-playing, they actually have a chart that tells you what kind of climate and this shit will be found in. And so I would give that to my rangers and be like, hey, you're going through the great old forest. Here's the shit you would know that is in this forest. We can do some search rolls to find this shit. So I don't know if I have too much of a problem with it. But no, most human beings are retarded and would probably eat the brightest, most fucking prettily colored fucking flowers and fruits available in the forest and die.
Mushrooms are good medicine. Like, you get one and it cures all your problems.
You're saying you get that wrong one.
So that's when you go, give me a vigor check against food poisoning.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that's a lethal one, man. Oh, and worse yet, you could go on like a whole adventure.
No, you know what?
Here's hallucinate your death.
Okay, so we're one of the things we want to have a conversation about is how do you deal with this as a GM at the table. So let's talk about how you deal with these pet peeves. First of all,
how did you handle the player who brought a pound of pemmican into the game?
What's wrong with pemmican jerky?
You let them have the pound of pemmican, then you take it away from them. You enforce encumbrance, or you go, wait a minute, hold on a second. So your character is making pemmican? We're gonna go verisimilitude. So your character knows how to make pemmican. Excellent. I'm gonna need you to go hunt the deer. And then hunt the berries, and then I'm gonna need you to spend 3 days in game time making this pemmican while you're being eaten alive by zombies and starving. Go ahead.
Dramatic task.
It only takes a week.
Right. Here's what you do with that. I mean, as a GM, you can basically go reality check. Stop being fucking ridiculous and trying to game the system.
You know what?
It's okay to, as a GM, to go. You know what? It's okay to pull a Neganism and going, hey, listen, I see what you're trying to do, and I want to make it very clear. I'm gonna shut that shit down.
What?
You get one. Yeah, you find chicken of the forest. Go ahead, give yourself a +4 on your fucking survival roll. Go ahead. That ain't happening again. Just so you know, that's a gimme.
What drives me absolutely crazy, the trollish behavior, is when you get that one player that just wants to be the agent of chaos. Like, what everybody is doing, they don't want to have anything to do with that. And the rules of, like, social behavior that make perfect sense, they want to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're an investigation game. And instead of actually asking the witness questions, you just start harassing them or just completely propositioning them. Or maybe you're in Deadlands and you just decide to kill Abraham Lincoln.
Wow. I say you might have a deeper problem there psychologically in one of those players. Yeah. If somebody wants to kill Lincoln, you might want to ask him anything
Hey,
else
it's
they'd
what
like
my
to do.
character would do. Dustin.
Were you a Confederate soldier by any chance? Or?
I was a time traveling Nazi, eliminating anomalies.
You can't
and
say
according
you
to
can't
my
say,
history.
You can't say World War II era German soldier. You have to.
Yeah, no, he wasn't World War II. He was a Nazi scientist.
Oh my
Time
God!
travel Nazi
Disavow.
scientist.
Disavow. Carlos Menz is
And
gonna get on
listen, he saw Abraham Lincoln alive and walking around, and that's an anomaly that needs to be put down.
We were playing Last Sons, and what I'd done is I'd linked all of the Deadlands settings together via time travel metaplot, and Jared's character comes in and he's like, everything is wrong. This is not supposed to be happening. This is crazy. So he starts fixing things.
Right. So I can avoid the alien invasion and apocalypse in my time.
From
'Cause
hell on earth.
obviously yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
I love John's comment. When Jared named his character John Wilkes Booth, he should have seen it coming.
Oh, it was fun.
No, I think that to a certain extent, one of the things you can do with the whole verisimilitude thing also is like actually sit and explain to them why they don't want it in the game. You know, explain to them, oh, do you really want us to have to talk about how often your character has a BM? Or how helpless you are sitting in the outhouse in this small country town that's infested with vampires?
Right, yeah.
You wrote into it, had to make a notice check to see the people hanging on the crosses. But no, we're going to make you go sit in an outhouse, give you a vigor check to not get dysentery. And by the way, the vampire attacks you while you're locked in that small wooden box.
Right, yeah. They took the shitter over. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about you strolling into the bar and disrespecting somebody or bumping into somebody and they just shoot you dead on the spot.
Right, yeah. Or you're in a gunfight. No, I need you to make an agility fucking check to reload that fucking that old Henry because you're nervous.
So I had a player recently who they were acting basically as bounty hunters. They gathered up these bloody ears to bring back to show that they had killed the creatures. And he had a bag full of bloody ears. He walks into the inn while the lord of the town is sitting at the inn eating a meal and literally drops the bloody bag of ears in the middle of the lord's dinner plate.
Oh, come on.
Was shocked when the captain of the guard who escorted him up to the lord arrested him.
I would have fucking American History X that fucking character on the fucking table in front of the Lord.
Oh no, they all have now woken up wet in a jail cell that they've been teleported to because the Lord happened to be a lesser demon who was working in the area. And I had already written that subplot. It wasn't supposed to happen for 6 months. But I had already figured out who the Lord was, and they just happened to, let's put a pen in this and jump right to.
Well, and what we're talking about too is we're talking about things the characters doing completely out of genre and completely out of the context of the game. And once again, the way you deal with that as a GM is you enforce consequences, number one. And if that doesn't send the message, then you actually stand up at the table or pull them aside and go, seriously, what are you doing? Are you intentionally trying to wreck everybody's fun and trying to be big alpha male badass? Is that it? Am I not presenting you with enough challenges to show you're a big badass that now you have to resort to doing this? Or are you just fucking with the game? What is it? And it's okay to go, and I hate to say have an adult conversation, but it's okay to call somebody out on the carpet in the game and go, what are you doing? What you're doing is being completely disruptive to everybody else playing this game. This isn't your character show. It's a collaborative storytelling. There are other people that are involved in this.
Well, why don't you just play Powered by the Apocalypse, Jared?
or better yet, Fate. I'm just doing my
But with Fate, you can actually do elves.
You can't even mock it with a straight face.
I know. It's because I don't know. It's ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous to me. But anyway, so yeah, as a GM, God, I hate to say it. A lot of these behaviors are just playing parent at the table. Sorry.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, a lot of your role of the game as a GM is knock it off. Stop touching your sister. Listen,
yeah.
I will turn the story around.
Yeah, it does come to that sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, that kind of reminds me of something that I heard. Going back to what you were talking about before, Scott. They had this. It was effectively this guy was running this game, and it was Lord of the It was like Game of Thrones. It's like they had this massive necromancer who was raising an army,
Oh boy.
and the party was supposed to like fight off the necromancer, and the GM was like listing it out, and somebody at the table stops and asks, does this kingdom allow gay marriage?
Yeah.
And the guy was like, the GM was like, he should have said yes, I guess.
Right?
But
He
he
should have
said-
just let it go.
Yeah, but he said,
Yeah.
no. So they
Fucking
went on,
idiot.
like the person pretty much strong-armed all the other players and made them go on this quest to get gay marriage legalized in the kingdom. And then the zombie horde just comes in and kill everybody. And I'm like, well,
Yeah. It happens.
it does. That is one of those moments that we were just talking about it. It reminded me of it.
Yeah.
So, any other topic? Because we're a little over-ish.
Yeah.
So, any other topics with liars, cheaters, and creeps that we want to talk about, and also present a solution as a GM on how to handle, other than just complaining about it?
I mean, Ruben asked us to actually talk about creeps.
Motherfucker.
I mean, the simple answer to creeps at the table is
Don't
they're no longer allowed to be at the table.
Yeah, you got to call those motherfuckers out immediately.
It is one thing if what's happening actually makes sense in the course of the story you're doing, and if everyone agreed to certain topics being part of the game. Again, I'm not going to tell you that you can't do erotic roleplay. I'm personally not going to do it, but I know a lot of people who are actually into that sort of thing. If everybody's on board, great. If that wasn't a session zero conversation, the person who tries to take it that direction is not allowed back. And if it's enough to make me even question if it makes somebody else uncomfortable at the table,
Yeah.
I'll actually stop the game and tell them, hey, cut that shit out.
Right.
It really is that simple.
Use the word fuckface. Everyone likes being called fuckface.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it sets a tone.
you're
It definitely
into.
sets a tone.
Yeah.
And even worse, because I've had this happen one time and I dealt with it perhaps not as well as I could have. I was a little brusque. I had a female player come to me and say, hey, so-and-so keeps sending me messages and texts, and I've told them no, that I'm not interested. And I pulled the guy aside, and I told him not only was he not welcome back to that game, he wasn't welcome back in my home, and that if I found out he was continuing to harass her, I would go to the police and report the harassment. I explained to him that what he was doing was illegal. Because here's the thing. Doesn't matter if it happens to a guy, a girl, harassment does not fly.
Yeah. No.
This isn't a, all the topics we don't typically talk about on the show. This is not that. This is literally, if a player comes to me and complains that they're being harassed, I don't care if it's about sex. I don't care if it's about their eye color. I don't care if it's about the lisp they gave their elf. If other players are literally harassing them, they're not allowed back in the game.
Yeah.
Right, and you're drawing a defining line between good old fashioned ribbing and wait, this has actually crossed the line. And now-
Yeah.
Yeah, because Scott with his Thor's hammer that he's got to swing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference between good old fashioned ball breaking and
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Anything else in the chat we need to address?
Mm-mm.
All right.
Mm-mm.
Then on that note, we'll go ahead and shut this shit down. Until next time, this is your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Dave, Dustin. Sorry, I said Dave when I said Scott. Let me start that over. So this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning signing out until next time. Say it for Dave, for Scott, Dustin, Dave, and Chris. I did it in backwards order. Saying keep rolling and stay savage.
Good night, Moon.